We've just heard Eliana Kissler's version of Tshuvat Halev, again, words from Marcia Falk. One thing that might not have come through in the last lecturette, and I think is really important to point out, is that these debates over the personhood of God and over limiting metaphors and expanding metaphors is not just theoretical, arguments that don't mean anything. People in the theological world feel these arguments very, very intensely. And one of the things that Marcia Falk shared with me when I visited her was just how much opposition there was to this, even very offensive, even quite hateful opposition to the point of actually sending her extremely offensive letters. And this is before the times that hate mail was something that you just type or comment or whatever. There's a lot of intense energy that goes into writing hate mail by hand, putting it in an envelope, putting a stamp on it and sending it to somebody. So it's pretty clear that people feel very, very intensely about these things to the point of using words like Chilul Hashem for these kinds of blessings that are more expansive. And I think that the answer to that is actually to fight limitations with more limitlessness and with more expansion. And we can see this with Marcia Falk's approach, the way that she's phrased it in a panel about feminism, about how feminist Judaism should have a dialectic approach. And here's how she talks about this. The question of how to create meaningful distinctions and boundaries, separations, if you will, for ontological and ethical purposes is a difficult one for feminist theory. Because patriarchal boundary making has always placed women in the role of other, feminists are understandably reluctant to affirm separation as valuable in human life. So, Setel, one of the panelists, states that separational modes of thought have run whatever course they may have had as empowering constructs. And, like other feminist theorists, she places high value on relationship per se. This, I should say, is a general theme not just in feminist Judaism, but in feminism in general. We can think about Carol Gilligan's work in a different voice, Jean Tronto's idea of this kind of ethic of care. A lot of this stuff comes in here, this idea that femaleness is relational by definition. But Marcia Falk is a little bit more expansive than that. And she says, I would propose a shift of emphasis and ask that we refine our categories, distinguishing among types of relationships, hierarchical versus egalitarian, for instance, and similarly among types of separation. Rather than create a mutually exclusive opposition between relationship and separation, it would be more accurate and more helpful to recognize both as necessary to human life, and indeed link to each other in a dialectical framework. There is nothing that is essentialist about this, and this is so expansive. And this is what she has to say, and we're going to end with that, about expanding the liturgy and about creativity in liturgy and creativity in perceiving the divine. The image, incidentally, is of Neshot HaKotel, the women of the wall, praying at the Western Wall. And when, as inevitably will also happen, and we know has actually happened, critics question our authenticity, deny our right to call our creativity and our creations Jewish, we, the members of the feminist Jewish communities that help comprise Klal Israel, the community of Israel, need to remind them that Jewish prayer, like all of Jewish practice and belief, all of Jewish life, has never been finally fixed. Rather, it has evolved, adapted, and changed throughout Jewish history. It is only recently, in fact, that the Hebrew liturgical tradition has ossified. It is not too late, we hope, to revive it. As we compose new prayers today to affirm diversity within unity, to express our visions of a true monotheism and our dedication to Tikkun Olam, repair of a fragmented world, as we compose and say such prayers, we place ourselves firmly in the tradition, a tradition that is still always in the process of becoming. We need to remind our critics and ourselves that tradition is not just what we inherit from the past, it is also what we create and pass on to the future. And since that is what we're doing with our HUC program, is recreating liturgy, is passing it on to the future, I leave this up to you to see where we're going to take our place and what we're going to make out of it, which is something that Marcia also wanted me to express to everybody. So toda rabah for listening and for your patience. And our last video is going to be a really delightful version of Shechianu with words by Marcia Falk and music performed by Limud Chicago. Bye-bye.